One of the principal issues, and what I would argue is the fundamental lens through which it makes sense to look at education in Africa, is the lens of access and quality. So in the last 40 years, Africa has made major strides in educational access. So if you look at this chart, what it shows is since 1975, what percentage of primary school children are out of school. And you can see that back in 1975, more than half of primary school children were out of school, if you follow that orange line. But that number has dropped dramatically. So as of just about 4 or 5 years ago, that number was down to 20%. Now that still means that 1 in 5 children who are primary school age aren't in school. And that number is especially high in the most vulnerable countries where there's conflict and challenges like that. Even with secondary school, where the data is more recent. So the World Bank started tracking the secondary school data just about 15, 16 years ago. And you can see from the blue line that as of about 2000, just under half of secondary school age students were not in secondary school. And we can see that that number is still very high. About 1/3 of children who should be in lower secondary school aren't there. So the first principal axis that we think about education on is access. Are children getting to school? Do they have the opportunity to get an education? But at the same time, as we think about access, it's absolutely crucial to balance that with a look at quality. So quality education is a major struggle. If you look at the international tests, so for example, there's one common international test is the TIMSS. It's an international test of mathematics. Only one African country has participated in the most recent round of TIMSS. It tests 4th grade students. So what you can see here is we've got a list of countries that participated in the TIMSS, and we've got Botswana, the one country in Africa that did participate in the round. And as you can see, it's actually at the bottom of the list. And this isn't comparing this isn't comparing Botswana to Singapore or Finland, some of these real global leaders in education. This is comparing Botswana to other middle-income countries like Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan and Thailand. Now, other African countries haven't participated in the TIMSS, but they have participated in some other tests. So for example, most of the Anglophone countries in sub-Saharan Africa have participated in another test of math called the SACMEC. And in that one, we see Botswana did relatively well. It wasn't the top scorer across all the African countries, but it did pretty well. And there are a lot of countries that did significantly worse, that are below Botswana in that list. And so we know, since Botswana participated in both tests, that a lot of these African nations are really struggling to deliver quality education. So even while there have been these great advances in access, many, many children are still failing to learn what we hope they'll learn from an education system. Now, of course, an education system does more than just teach children reading and math. It can teach citizenship. It can help children learn important social skills. All of these can benefit children later on in life. But we also feel like education should fundamentally be giving children the building blocks for a lifetime of education. And that starts with reading and writing and mathematics. And there's still a real struggle for that. So I would propose that as we think about educational issues in Africa, we use access. Do children have the opportunity to get into the education system? And quality, do children actually learn once they get there, as our principal lens? So these issues come up in the news. So I surveyed a few just recent news pieces on education in Africa. A recent piece on Liberia. Liberia's education sector still low compared to international standards. On this piece from Front Page Africa Online. Another piece on Malawi's school certificate of education examination results. So as I searched through a sample of recent articles on education in Africa, the quality of education, how well children were doing in school, came up again and again. So this is a really high priority issue. So remember, when we think about any new program or policy or intervention, we should think about how is it affecting access? Is it getting children into school? And is it affecting quality? So for example, when we think about a program that provides school meals for children, for example, a free breakfast or a free lunch at school. So those kinds of programs might be particularly helpful at helping with access because, you know, children, especially in poor households, may not have access to 3 meals a day at home. And so offering free meals can really get a lot of children to school. It's less obvious exactly how that's going to work on quality. It might work. Children who are hungry, obviously, might not be able to spend as much attention focusing on the class. And so it might also matter in that regard. But when we report on programs and interventions and policies, we have to think about this double lens, access and quality.